Hello, everybody, and welcome to some drama. Obviously, drama online is a bit more tricky than drama in the drama studio, but let's have a go. For today, however, you will need a piece of paper and a pencil. So if you haven't got one, pause me right now, go and get one. Otherwise, keep listening. You'll need your piece of paper and a pencil. You'll see why in a moment. Okay, in Year 5 drama, one of the things we look at is fairy stories. So I thought I would start today by reading you a fairy story. And the story I'm going to read you is called The Frog Prince. And it was written by the Brothers Grimm, who were a German family who lived back in the 18th century. And they put together a load of stories based on the folklore of the time. So what I'd like you to do, as I am reading, is on your piece of paper, try and record the story. Now, that could be by writing it. So I know some of you will be really quick writers, because when I've done this with some of you, your Year 5s, I was amazed at how much you managed to get down. Some people, you might want to do a bit of a storyboard, like a cartoon. So do each little scene separately with some pictures of the characters and how they work. The idea is that at the end of the story, you'll be able to go back and look at your piece of paper and be able to retell the story. Okay. One benefit of doing it this way is, of course, you can pause me anytime you like. So if you haven't quite caught something I've said, you can just rewind me and go back. Or if you need a bit of time to catch up, you can put me on pause, get your ideas together, get your stuff, get the story down, and then start me off again. Okay, I'm sitting comfortably. Are you sitting comfortably? Let's begin. The Frog Prince. One fine evening, a young princess put on her bonnet and clogs and went out to take a walk by herself in a wood. And when she came to a cool spring of water with a rose in the middle of it, she sat herself down to rest a while. Now, she had a golden ball in her hand, which was her favourite plaything, and she was always tossing it up into the air and catching it again as it fell. After a time, she threw it up so high that she missed catching it as it fell, and the ball bounded away and rolled along the ground until at last it fell down into the spring. The princess looked into the spring after her ball, but it was very deep, so deep she couldn't see the bottom of it. She began to cry and said, "Alas, if I could only get my ball again, I would give all my fine clothes and jewels and everything that I have in the world." Whilst she was speaking, a frog put its head out of the water and said, "Princess, why do you weep so bitterly?" "Alas," said she, "what can you do for me, you nasty frog? My golden ball has fallen into the spring." The frog said, "I do not want your pearls and jewels and fine clothes, but if you will love me and let me live with you and eat from off your golden plate and sleep on your bed, I will bring you your ball again." "What nonsense," thought the princess. "This silly frog is talking. He can never even get out of the spring to visit me, though he may be able to get my ball for me, and therefore I will tell him he shall have what he asks." So she said to the frog, "Well, if you'll bring my ball to me, I will do as you ask." Then the frog put his head down and dived deep under the water, and after a little while he came up again with the ball in his mouth and threw it onto the edge of the spring. As soon as the young princess saw her ball, she ran to pick it up, and she was so overjoyed to have it in her hand again, she never thought of the frog, but ran home with it as fast as she could. The frog called after her, "Stay, princess, take me with you as you said." But she didn't hear a word. The next day, just as the princess had sat down to dinner, she heard a strange noise. Tap, tap, plash, plash, as if something was coming up the marble staircase. And soon afterwards there was a gentle knock at the door, and a little voice cried out and said, "Open the door, my princess dear. Open the door to thy true love here, and mind the words that thou and I said by the fountain cool in the greenwood shade." Then the princess ran to the door and opened it, and there she saw the frog, whom she'd quite forgotten. At the sight she was sadly frightened, and shutting the door as fast as she could, came back to her seat. The king, her father, seeing that something had frightened her, asked her what was the matter. "There's "There's a nasty frog," said she, "at the door that lifted my ball for me out of the spring this morning. I told him he should live with me, thinking that he could never get out of the spring, but there he is at the door and he wants to come in." While she was speaking, the frog knocked again at the door and said, "Open the door, my princess dear. Open the door to thy true love here. And mind the words that thou and I said by the fountain cool in the greenwood shade." And the king said to the young princess, "As you've given your word, you must keep it. So go and let him in." She did so, and the frog hopped into the room and then straight on, tap, tap, plash, plash, from the bottom of the room to the top, till he came up close to the table where the princess sat. Pray lift me up upon your chair," said he to the princess, "and let me sit next to you." As soon as she'd done this, the frog said, "Put your plate nearer to me, that I may eat out of it." This she did, and when he'd eaten as much as he could, he said, "Ah, now I'm tired. Carry me upstairs and put me into your bed." And the princess, though very unwilling, took him up in her hand and put him upon her pillow, where he slept all night long. As soon as it was light, the frog jumped up, hopped downstairs, and went out of the house. "Oh, now then," thought the princess, "at last he's gone, and I shall be troubled with him no more." But she was mistaken, for when night came again, she heard the same tapping at the door, and the frog came out once more and said, "Open the door, my princess dear. Open the door to thy true love here. And mind the words that thou and I said by the fountain cool in the greenwood shade." And when the princess opened the door, the frog came in and slept on her pillow as before till the morning broke. And the third night he did the same. But when the princess awoke on the following morning, she was astonished to see, instead of the frog, a handsome prince, gazing on her with the most beautiful eyes she had ever seen, and standing at the head of her bed. He told her that he'd been enchanted by a spiteful fairy who had changed him into a frog, and that he'd been fated so to abide till some princess should take him out of the spring and let him eat from her plate and sleep upon her bed for 3 nights. "You," said the prince, "have broken this cruel charm, and now I have nothing to wish for but that you should go with me into my father's kingdom, where I will marry you and love you as long as you live." The young princess, you may be sure, was not long in saying yes to all this. And as they spoke, a brightly coloured coach drove up with 8 beautiful horses, decked with plumes of feathers and a golden harness, and behind the coach rode the prince's servant, faithful Heinrich, who had bewailed the misfortunes of his dear master during his enchantment so long and so bitterly that his heart had well nigh burst. They then took leave of the king and got into the coach with 8 horses, and all set out, full of joy and merriment, for the prince's kingdom, which they reached safely, and they there lived happily for a great many years. Okay, I hope you got most of that story. If you didn't, then rewind and have another little go. Take a little bit of time. So you should either have at the end of this a large piece of paper with some writing on it to explain the story, or a bit of a storyboard, a cartoon character with all the scenes on there. I should think you could probably get away with maybe 8 scenes to cover the whole little play, the whole little story. Send those in to the website under the Performing Arts. That would be wonderful to see, and I look forward to having a think about what that story means in our next lesson. Bye.